everybody, and welcome to Blue Jays Today, where you boys always have something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog.
And I'm your host, Adam Peta. And today, guys, did the Blue Jays just miss out on another opportunity to add a big bat to the lineup? Cody Bellinger was traded to the Yankees, and reports came out afterwards that the Blue Jays, well, they were in on him too. And so it has Blue Jay fans questioning, well, why didn't we go out and try to get a Cody Bellinger? But we're going to discuss that because Cody Bellinger is a very interesting character, where he's a very hit or miss type of guy, but we'll get into that and more other Blue Jays news around the league. Before we do, guys, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button to Blue Jays Today. So, first things first, Cody Bellinger gets traded to the Yankees. That was the big report, and what they gave up for him wasn't really a top caliber guy. I mean, he's a good pitcher. It's Cody Pediat, or I think that's his name, Podiat. He's a solid guy that they gave up, but that was essentially it. And the Yankees go and address that need in their lineup where, yeah, Cody Bellinger is a hit or miss type of guy. I mean, we all know about him. He's either a phenomenal player or he's a really bad player. But we can all agree that he is still a player that would be a positive impact on a Blue Jay team. So the question is, well, why couldn't we cross the finish line if we're so desperate to add to this lineup?
Well, because we know that the Blue Jays front office, even though they say that they want to go out and make all these moves, and, you know, they say that they're trying to be competitive and they say that they're trying to be aggressive, it's like, the actions don't match the words here, right? Like, ultimately, I gotta see it to believe it, and I haven't seen it from this Blue Jays front office. Now, I will admit, I mean, missing out on Cody Bellinger, in my opinion, isn't like... It's not the end of the world, you know, like right. This is a guy that honestly in a New York Yankees uniform could kind of suck. Like I could totally see a reality where the New York Yankees are shelling out $25 million a year for a guy who's batting .240 and, you know, has a low 700 OPS. That is very well within his range of outcomes. So I'm actually not that upset that the Toronto Blue Jays didn't want to go out and get this guy, even though we were looking at him.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to... you have to go and get somebody else then, right?
Right.
I mean, Cody Bellinger is still better than what we currently have, which is Alejandro Kirk batting fourth. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So we still need to go out and address that. If it's not going to be Cody Bellinger, I'm fine with that. I'm really not that upset that we didn't go and do it, but it still needs to be a Christian Walker or a Pete Alonso or a what have you to make me feel okay with the fact that the Yankees did just get a semi-intriguing lottery ticket in Cody.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, what you saw the Yankees give up was a very cheap lottery ticket, right? It wasn't a whole lot, and then you're also...
Or no, they acquire, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, sorry, for Cody Bellinger. I see what you're saying, but
Yes.
also to pay for that lottery ticket wasn't a high price is what I'm saying. And it goes back to the Blue Jays. Well, if you're having such a hard time getting free agents, and actually shout out to Joe Siddle who brought this up, if you're having such a hard time getting free agents, well, the only way you could really acquire talent these days is via the trade because they have no choice. So that for me would have been an easy kind of low-hanging fruit to go grab. Now again, it's a lottery ticket, but so is the Blue Jays 2025 season. You got to take some shots and go adding some guys that are sure things, and trades can be sure things rather than try to convince a guy to uproot his life and come over to the Toronto Blue Jays. So for me, like, again, I'm not upset either, but it's when you do look at the AL East, that's a swing already right there. You're like, yeah, he's not a ground-breaking player by any means. I mean, he could totally flop next year, but that could be the swing that the Blue Jays needed to go a little bit their way.
We're learning that the Blue Jays management, at least for this year, are very conservative with their money, with everything, right? Like that is the way of it, right? And it's not just in Cody Bellinger as well, right? We're hearing the same thing going on about the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract extensions and what will inevitably become the trade sweepstakes or what have you for Guerrero. Shai Davidi came out recently and was talking about how the Toronto Blue Jays, they got one chance at signing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or extending him, and it's effectively what we've been saying this whole time. He was saying that for a deal to get done before Guerrero hits free agency, then the Blue Jays will have to veer way out of their comfort zone, and the four-time All-Star first baseman will have to surrender some upside. Now, to do that, he says, the challenge for the Blue Jays is buying Guerrero out of the opportunity to see how high the open market might push his salary, especially if he delivers another monster season. And I've been saying this time and time again, right? Right now, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is one all-star season away from getting paid close to $500, maybe even more than $500 million. But He still has to play like an all-star. He still has to be healthy. So you have to convince him through monetary value that we are willing to buy out your upside right now. And to do that, it's going to require you to, like Shai Davidi says, go outside the comfort zone and probably spend $450 million right now.
And that's the thing, right? When you hear all these reports about the Toronto Blue Jays and I always like to bring this up this offseason, their valuations, right? Because we heard that a lot with Juan Soto. Is that going to fall within their evaluations, considering what he's going to get next year? Because that's exactly right. This is the exact truth. To get him out of next free agency, give him what he thinks his upside could be, and then you're fine. And then there's no need to do this whole song and dance and stress for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I could lock down my contract. I could settle in here into Toronto even further, raise my kids here, do all the things you got to do here to be here for a long, long time. And for Vladdy's sake, I'm sure he would prefer that because he doesn't have to uproot his whole life and go anywhere else, especially with his, how much he's expressed he's wanted to be Toronto Blue Jay. But you got to pay him the money. That's what it comes down to. And will Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro do it? If you ask me, I highly doubt that their evaluations has anything in it that says pay him $500 million.
Of course, right? Like we heard that it was 340 was the number. And again, we don't know if that's fully accurate or not, but that was the report that came out, is that $340 million is where they're at today. That's just not going to do it, right? No. I think realistically, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, if you offer him $440 or $450 million and he turns it down, then you know what? You've done all you can do. That's super reasonable. I think going any higher than that at this point right now is getting to be a lot. Yeah. So I would completely agree with the way that you handle it. If you do that and he says no, and then, okay, it is going to be a free agency thing. But we're just not there yet, and we're $100 million off of it. Speaking of spending money, how about the latest Toronto Blue Jays target in Nick Peta? You want to talk about being conservative with your funds, it would be going after a guy like this. Now, to the Toronto Blue Jays' credit, I always thought it was a little strange that we were going balls to the wall to go after a starting pitcher, because I do think that ultimately the biggest strength of this team is their starting pitching. So if you are going to spend a lot of money, I would have preferred you do it in the lineup.
Right,
give me a Pete Alonso. Give me an Alex Bregman. Give me somebody like that. So maybe if they're thinking about doing that, then this could make sense. But it looks like instead of Corbin Burns, instead of Max Fried, instead of Blake Snell, it could be a Nick Peta in the rotation instead of all those guys.
Yeah, and let's quickly break down what Nick Peta would do for the Blue Jays and whether it's a worthy investment or not. Nick Peta, in the last 2 years, give him some credit. He has been a somewhat average filler of the rotation, right? A 4.14 ERA last year, a 4.04 the year before. Granted, he only done it through 140 innings roughly each season. And when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays rotation, when you got Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, maybe the upside of Bowden Francis, well, this guy would most likely be your fourth or fifth pitcher on the Toronto Blue Jays. And when you look at that rotation as well, and again, I like to bring up what Joe Siddall said in our recent podcast, to his credit, the age of the rotation is starting to show a little bit. You saw it in Chris Bassett. You saw it with, again, the slow start of Kevin Gausman, hoping for a bit of a bounce back there. But you are seeing a bit of age come in. And adding someone like Corbin Burns, and obviously an ideal situation, you kind of reset the age a little bit. You got a guy who's going to immediately be your number one, pushes everyone down, so if they do regress, it's okay. You got Corbin Burns at the top. Whereas you got Nick Peta in this case, he would just be to kind of fill out your rotation, which isn't bad if everybody's still kind of doing what they're supposed to do, and Kevin Gausman and Barrios and maybe Bowden Francis has a breakout. It's not bad. It will help you kind of get through a full 162. But again, to your point, you got to make the playoffs by adding other bats. So this isn't going to be the needle isn't going to move a whole lot with a Nick Peta.
It's a Yusei Kikuchi replacement, guys.
That's
like
what it
you,
is.
you look at the career numbers from Yusei Kikuchi, and then you look at them from Nick Peta. They really aren't that far off at all, right? And the guy had a 4.14 ERA last year, which is just slightly higher than what Yusei Kikuchi did last year. And granted, a lot of that good stuff from Yusei Kikuchi happened over in Houston rather than the Toronto Blue Jays. So
he had a 4.75.
Yeah,
so
I mean, like legitimately, this would become the new Yusei Kikuchi. Right. He would be 32 years old. I'm not upset about it. Like I think that like Nick Peta, adding him is not going to hurt you, and I do think that if he can pitch to a low 4 ERA. You're talking about somebody that, could certainly be serviceable, and especially if there's injuries, like he'll probably eat a couple innings for you and, pitch that fifth day, and that'll be that. But yeah, it doesn't move the needle like Corbin Burnes would. And if you do go out and you add Nick Pivetta, great. The rotation, in my opinion, is set up. You got your ace, you got a couple other mid guys, and then you got your potential upside in Bound Francis. It's looking good, but we have to address the fucking lineup, right? If it's not going to be Cody Bellinger, and it's not going to be, various of the other guys that have been, tied or linked to the Toronto Blue Jays, and you're not willing to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now, what are you willing to do? Who are you willing to spend money on? Figure it the fuck out and do it. Because Nick Pivetta, as much as he's going to help this team, this isn't the World Series or playoff defining move that's going to push us over the edge. Somebody's got to score some guys. I mean, this guy alone gives up 4 runs, on average in 9 innings. Who's going to score 4 runs for us to keep it a fucking ball game?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have anyone right now.
Well, again, to circle it all back, to tie this whole podcast into a bow, what are the challenges you're facing? We've said it all offseason. You're Toronto, you're a losing team, you don't have Vladdy locked up. So it's increasingly difficult to sign free agents, as we're finding. I don't think, if I were to bet money on it, I don't think we're getting Santander. I don't think we're getting Teoscar Hernandez. I don't think we're getting Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso. Like, if I had to bet money, I'd be very shocked and happy if we did any of those things. And so to tie it all back to Cody Bellinger, yes. Do I think Cody Bellinger is a lock-in superstar, all-star player? No. But he's better than Joey Loperfido right now. I can guarantee you that he is better and has way more upside than Joey Loperfido. So if you're seeing this market play out where not a lot of people are interested in coming to you, hell, Corbin Burnes hasn't even effing signed yet. Right? He's waiting to go to a better team than you. No wonder why no one wants to come play for you. No one's coming and signing here. So to circle all back to Cody Bellinger, he doesn't have a choice. He has to play for you if you go and make a trade, and they missed out on that opportunity. I think that's where a lot of people are coming from. Hey guys, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below or click the link in the description to join the action. Available in Ontario only. Must be 19 years older to participate. And guys, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Sure. And I get it, right? I get all of that. And for me, it's in a vacuum. I don't hate not getting Cody Bellinger. In a vacuum, I don't hate bringing in Nick Pivetta.
Right.
In a vacuum, I don't even hate not extending Guerrero if he is, asking for, ungodly sums of money, right? But when you pair all of these things together, it's not great. And what fixes all of this is if you go and get a big-time bat. If you miss out on Bellinger, but you bring in Pete Alonso, I don't care.
Right.
And if you can't extend Guerrero, but you bring in Pete Alonso, I start to feel at least a little bit better about it. Like, all of this starts to make a lot more sense if somebody is getting paid $200 million that can come and hit home runs.
Here's the problem.
That's it.
Here's the problem. They think they're going to compete in 2025, and they're being very conservative in the people they bring in. But they're not. But they realize, like, in order to compete in 2025, you got to be uber aggressive. You got to be more aggressive, and then bring in people. Shooting for the sun and landing on the moon. You have to do that. And they're right now just shooting for the moon, and they're not even getting out of the effing atmosphere. And that's the problem right now with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, we'll see how it all develops, guys. Those are the latest Toronto Blue Jays updates for you. Will Nick Pivetta be a Toronto Blue Jay? Might need to adjust the champagne bottles and have his name on there.
God.
Do a little Nick Pivetta watch-along stream, guys. Latest with Guerrero, latest with Bellinger. Let us know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below, guys. Please hit that like, smash that subscribe button. Also, $3 a month, become a Patron member. Shout out and thank you to all of our current Patreon members and our YouTube members, too. You guys are so appreciated.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always, go Jays, go!